Welcome to the Black Doctor Collective podcast. We as Black doctors are in a unique position. We can change our communities, healthcare, and the world. Of course, we start by changing the way we see and value ourselves. I'm your host, Dr. Shanika Horn, pediatrician and physician coach, travel extraordinaire. I am so happy to have you here and listening. So let's get into it. Good morning and welcome back to the podcast, the Black Doctor Collective podcast. I am Dr. Shanika. Obviously, for those of you who are not new here, y'all know me. Okay, this episode I'm talking about locums. I have been thinking about doing an episode specifically dedicated to locums, how to get into it, what do you need to know. This is like the tell-all of locums world. What triggered this episode, besides the fact that I've definitely been meaning to do this, besides the fact that I have talked to so many doctors individually about the locums process, was obviously my transition, right? I've been talking about my transition out of my medical director role. And I've talked about how uncomfortable that can be, deciding to leave something, and how it doesn't feel powerful in the moment, right? Sometimes it really feels like a hard decision. And a lot of times we stay in places longer because we are afraid. And some of that fear is just anxiety about just the unknown. But some of that fear is also based on financial obligations, decisions we have to make, right? Like we all need money to survive in this world, especially in America. So I think one of the things that helps me is that over time, I have built a lot of evidence that I know how to make money and that jobs are abundant. That's a huge discovery, right? I think I learned that through years of locums work before this position. I learned that through helping other doctors negotiate for a lot of other jobs. Sometimes when doctors came to me for my coaching, maybe they had one contract that they were interested in, but I helped create several other interviews so that they had a range, so that they could understand the gamut of things that are out there, so they could see the variety of things that jobs offer, right? Just for evidence for their own brain. So I think their evidence has also helped my evidence, right? I know that even if I leave this job, I will be okay. And safety is a huge part of our emotional well-being, right? Like your amygdala is all about fight, flight, or freeze. And so many of us freeze in a job or in a relationship or in a housing situation, something, because we're too afraid about the unknown, the alternatives. Like, what am I going to do without this job, relationship, whatever? And you have to teach yourself that there are options. You have to show yourself there are options. So I always tell doctors, and I'm telling y'all, if you have any questions, even about your current job, it's no harm to speak to a recruiter, to start looking at job postings, just so you can supply your brain with the knowledge that other things exist outside of what you have now. People don't often feel the grass is greener in a lot of their job searches. They feel like the devil you know is better than the devil you don't, right? They feel like if I'm jumping out of the frying pan, I could be jumping into the fire. And that is the type of fear that leads us to stay. So I also have to do similar work, right? Because it would be so easy for me to just stay. Like my job asked me to stay. They asked me to give them an even longer time of being a medical director. They wanted 6 months. And that would be easy. I could just go to work and collect a paycheck and kind of suppress all the things that are driving me absolutely mad and were giving me heart palpitations last year. I just realized this year that I haven't had heart palpitations since like the summertime. And I was like, oh, I didn't realize how overwhelmed I was. Like I was having physical manifestations, something that I've coached other people on. But it's like when you are the patient versus when you're the doctor, it's totally different experiences, right? Like your ability to assess yourself or your kids is totally skewed. So that's what happened to me last year. And I wanted to make sure I sat down, talked with my brain, gave myself the evidence that it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. Okay, so that leads me to this episode where I'm talking about locums. Okay, so if you've not heard of locums, it is basically the temp job version in medicine. So locums agencies are basically large agencies, sometimes small, agencies of people whose sole job is to fill vacant positions across the country. So an agency will have recruiters, right? And the recruiters, there's two types of recruiters. There's recruiters for the hospital system or the clinic, and then there's the recruiters for the physicians. And then they have like people who do credentialing, people who do travel arrangements. We'll get all into that. But there's the two types of recruiters that really exist are these ones for the agency and like for the clinic. So they would reach out to hospitals. They're the hospital's primary contact. They're the ones creating those contracts between the hospitals or the clinics and the agency. And then there's the ones that talk to the physicians, that pitch them positions or recruit them for potential positions, because they always want to have a bank of physicians that are able to fill a position at any time. So when you decide you want to do locums, I highly recommend that you find a handful of agencies. When you're looking for locums agencies, there are large ones, well-known ones. I'm not giving anyone credit in this video because that's not my job. And I don't do free advertising for these people. But there are well-known large agencies. If you go to a doctor's conference, those are the ones at the conference, right? Trying to recruit people walking through the exhibit halls to their agency. Those are the ones you see the most that people talk about in Facebook groups. And the pros to a large, well-established locums agency is ideally they have the money and the capital to pay you, okay? There are smaller agencies who also have the capital, but I find sometimes the really small ones or the brand new ones often have payment problems because the cash flow is that the hospital or the clinic should pay the agency for the work that you've done, and then the agency pays you. So if there's any delay from the clinic or the hospital end in paying the agency, they might delay their payment to you. And that is problematic for you as the worker, right? To not get paid on time. And I know this in my clinic, we have invoices from like last month that we still haven't paid. And it's just our processing time is slow. And depending on the invoicing time, sometimes it's like we have 10 days to pay, 15 days they pay, 30 to pay. So you want to make sure that the agency that you're signing up for has the kind of capital to make sure that you get paid on time. So I always advise that you do a little research on your agency to see how long they've been around and also why you want to be in contact with multiple agencies. Okay. So that's just the overall picking of the agency. So the next component is the recruiters for all of the agencies are usually regional specific or even state specific or even city specific. So I'm a New York City resident. A lot of the agencies have either New York as a region or New York City itself as its own region. And there is a recruiter assigned to that region. So if you're asking your friend for some recommendations and they don't live in the same state as you, you can still reach out to any recruiter from that agency, but they will likely redirect you to the person or people covering that particular region. I say that because the recruiter that is assigned to you matters. Okay? Some recruiters will absolutely advocate for you. They will try to negotiate for your amount with the agency because it's not with the company per se. It gets a little tricky. But some of them will play in your face, okay? They will be gaslighting the crap out of you and telling you you can't earn what you know you deserve to earn based on your skill set. Mind you, none of these people have medical degrees. They don't understand medicine, and half the time they give you information, it's spotty at best, okay? But you have to be careful about the recruiters you're talking to, and also you should be talking to other people because you do not want to get gaslit by a recruiter who's trying to make money. Here's why there's a huge conflict of interest in this scenario. The agency will charge a certain amount. So like, for example, I know that our clinic gets charged anywhere from $230 to $250 or $60 an hour for a locums physician. We're pediatrics. There is no pediatrician locums that is making $250 an hour. I'm sorry to say it. I've heard that for ER. I've heard that for like other types of specialties, but pediatrics does not earn $250 an hour in this current day. The pediatric rate, so I've seen as low as $80 or $90 an hour. Hopefully that was from years ago. I have seen really low locums rate. Like when I first started locums in 2021, I met a pediatrician who was doing the same job as me. I was earning $130 or $135 an hour. She was earning $90 an hour for the same job, and she had, I don't know, like 10 years of experience over me. What she did not have was negotiation skills. Okay. So when I told her the rate that I was making versus the rate she was making, she quit. And I was like, good for you, girl, because why should you be paid $90 an hour as a senior pediatrician? That's ridiculous. So that's just to show you that if I'm paying an agency $230 to $260 and the pediatrician is making $130, $110, the difference between that $250 and the $110 is what the agency takes home per hour of your work. Okay. So a recruiter, although they will tell you that they're advocating for you, and some of them are lovely, and some of them might try, they are also very aware of how much profit. They're aware of the profit margin. And the profit margin matters to them, right? And so you will have recruiters who are trying to maximize their profit margin. That is why it's a direct conflict of interest to think that the recruiter is going to support you over the company that they work for. And so even if they advocate for you, and even if they try to get you this higher rate, just know that they will either be pushing the hospital or the clinic to pay more per hour so that their profit margin stays the same, or they're trying to convince you to take a lesser route so their profit margin stays the same. Okay. Here's the other caveat, which a lot of people do not understand. What's happening with my voice today? When you do locums, whether it is local to your current residence or if you decide to travel out of state, there are additional things you can add on. One of the things I loved about doing locums was free travel. So as a locums doctor, I could travel to another state, and I did. I did Virginia, I did Jersey, I did upstate New York. I could travel to another state. They paid for my flight. They paid for my rental car. If I drove my own car, they paid gas and mileage, right? You don't get that at your regular job. You got to drive your dusty old car to your regular job every single day, and nobody's paying you for mileage or tolls. And I pay tolls right now to go to my current job. So like nobody's paying for that. It's such a nice perk to have free travel. They also pay for your hotel. They pay. The question is, who is they who is paying? It is actually the clinic or the hospital. It is part of the contract with the agency and the clinic that they are covering mileage, hotels, transportation, all the perks. So that's another thing that does not come out of the locums agency's profit margin. So when you are negotiating with an agent and they're like, oh, we could get you this rate, but we're also covering transportation and mileage and hotel for you. So really the rate would need to be lower. It's not because they're paying for it. Don't fall for that trap. They will speak in the I perspective as if they are the ones actually footing the bill, but they are not. Okay. The only thing I think that goes through the agency is that they do credentialing. So of course they have to pay staff for recruiting. That's what the overhead is going to. They're paying the staff for the recruiting. They have people who do your credentialing or help you with credentialing. They help you with licensing. Sometimes they offer to pay for licenses, right? There's a wide range of things. The reason they can afford to do that is because they're making at least as much as you per hour or even a little bit more. I watched a video once for a company, LT, and they have a recruitment video for people to come and work for them. and it talks about the gym and the facilities they offer, the cafeteria. I mean, that building looked amazing. They got the building looking like a Google office building, right? You got all the perks, all the amenities. And I'm like, is this what they doing with my money? Because I'm the one doing the work. And y'all are over there enjoying childcare. I don't even have childcare. I mean, I don't have children, but you get the point, okay? They had the sweetest office setup I have seen, and I was so annoyed and resentful. I have shared that video to so many other doctors because I think it's absolutely ridiculous that I earned as much as the locums agency or even less after 8 years of college and medical school plus residency training and $500,000 worth of debt to end up earning the same as this company who's giving all the perks and I don't have the perks. That sounds crazy to me. So that is all of the things I want you to consider when you're talking to a recruiter, when you're thinking about agencies, when they're telling you they're paying for something. They're not paying for anything other than malpractice credentialing. Okay. Sometimes I have said, and I've had other doctors say, like they will tell them if something's not covered, transportation's not covered, mileage and gas is not covered, whatever, it needs to come out of their profit. Like they need to eat the cost. And so you have to be bold enough. You have to have that understanding, that inner working of the agencies in order to know what to ask for and what to advocate for. Okay. That is like the general structure of locums agencies. Sign up with multiple so that multiple people are sending you job offers. It's part of that whole evidence that there are plenty of jobs. It also gives you a sense of what types of jobs are out there, not just in terms of money, but in terms of schedule, because there's a lot of part-time, there's a lot of short-term, there's a lot of no-call options, right? And so seeing that all of these things exist also gives you the knowledge, because that's what everyone wants to know. What is available? What should I be asking for? What do I need to say? And so by reading so many job descriptions from multiple recruiters, it gives you so much knowledge. It gives you so much information about what exists and what you can be asking for. When you decide to talk to a locums agent, they will come on the phone. I don't know if it's going to be in the context of you just want to put your name on their radar so that they could start sending you stuff, or it could be that you saw a job posting, as is the case with my first locums job. Someone posted a job on a Facebook group and said it was through a particular agency. I reached out directly to that agency to inquire about the job. Locums, once you get onto their radar, they ask you to sign some version of a contract. That contract essentially is to protect the agency. Remember that if someone's offering you a contract and they're the ones writing it, the language tends to be in their favor, tends to be protective for them. So that language is usually like, I'm agreeing to have this agency have access to my information, to present me to potential jobs. It shouldn't be presented without your knowledge. They should not be presenting you because that creates a non-compete. But there is some non-compete language, some restrictive covenant language in those contracts. And some of them are to say, if I work for a particular hospital or if I work for a particular clinic, I cannot then go back and work for them within 2 years of my locums assignment because they don't want to be cut out as the middleman. Let's say you go to a hospital and you sign a 2-month contract. Always sign a short contract because you can always renegotiate or you can always quit if you don't need it. Okay. Let's say you go to the hospital, you work there for 2 months, you love it. You're like, this is great, but why should the agency be getting a cut of this pie when I could just come and like work per diem? Maybe I could earn the $250. The hospital will not pay you the $250. I don't know what their is other than they're paying malpractice, but like they will not pay you the higher rate for some reason. They are fine with paying the locums an exorbitant amount of money and not paying you the exorbitant amount of money. It's probably because they don't want to change the market rate and they don't want to change how much they pay their individual employees because in their mind, locums is temporary. Anyway, let's say you do that. You have a great experience. You're trying to direct contract with the hospital. You're trying to cut out the locums agency. The agency has a contract with both the hospital or clinic, and they also have a contract with you saying that you guys are not allowed to work together for a specific restricted amount of time. Sometimes those contracts would be like, you're not allowed to work for that whole health system. Now, if you are familiar with large health systems, you know that they will have locations maybe across an entire state. right? Like they might have the monopoly on an entire city. So be very careful about the wordings in those locums contracts, because you do not want to end up not working within a certain mile radius of the place that you live, or not working for one of the major health systems in a place that you live when there are not other options. Okay. And as I mentioned, always make your contracts as short as possible. I like a 2-month contract. I don't like to sign longer, even if I plan to stay longer, because at the end, before that 2 month is up, before the month is up, they're contacting you to figure out if you want to extend. And in that extension, you can either add vacation dates that maybe you didn't plan in advance. You can be like, yes, I'm available except for these dates. You can give them blackout dates. You can renegotiate the amount. Sometimes they'll try to hire someone cheaper from under you. I've had that happen, or attempt to happen. It didn't work out in their favor. But all of those things will still happen even if you decide, I'm going to sign like this long contract, right? They can give you 30 days notice to cancel your contract. You can give them 30 days notice to cancel your contract. So it's not job security to sign a super, super long contract. I haven't found that to be true. Okay. So sign a short contract, sign up with multiple agencies. Know that once you are with an agency and you have done these preliminary calls, that things you say on those calls are contractual. You don't have to physically sign something. If you agree to be presented to a clinic, that is contractual, verbally. Verbal conversation with locums are contractual. Okay. So I usually don't agree. I usually say, don't present me until I give it to you in writing. I say those things verbally as a protection, because if I'm a hospital and I hire multiple agencies to find employees for me, one agency might be charging a certain price and the other agency might be charging a lower price. And so those agencies, depending on what they're charging, will try to recruit the cheapest physician they can recruit. Right? So let's say you get hit up as a doctor. You're a doctor, you hear about the same position from 2 different agencies and they're offering 2 different rates. If the agency who's paying lower, let's say they're only offering you $150 an hour and the other place is offering you $175 an hour, you will lose out on the $175 if you let the other agency present you to that hospital. You then become on a no hire list. Like they have presented you and the only way you can work for that hospital is if you go through the agency that presented you. Presentation is a non-compete, which is why I don't let anybody just present me willy-nilly, right? Like I'm very cautious about who I'm sending my CV, because there are some sneaky smaller agencies that will try to present you without your knowledge. And then when you find the job through another agency who's well paying and you go to apply, they will tell you that they cannot, because your name did not clear. You did not pass the name clearance. And the name clearance means that you were added to a list that you were already presented by someone else. And so your employment would have to go through that other person. Sometimes in a scary situation, you may not have given that agency the right to present you. So you have to be very cautious about who you're giving your CV to, and making sure that you state very clearly that you do not want to be presented until you either submit it in writing or whatever the conditions you choose to do. Okay? That is how you protect yourself. We've covered how to choose an agency, what does it mean to sign an agency contract, who's paying for what. Those are the core things about locums. I think it can be a very fantastic experience. I think there's obviously a lot of perks to it, including you can use all that hotel stay for travel points. I think this is the part where locums gets fun. You're asking yourself, what do you want? And the thing is, you can literally create any or all of it. So you can do locums locally. Like I've done locums within my city. I've done locums within my state outside of my city. I've done locums in other locations, other states. So it's up to you. You don't have to travel. I think that's a common, what's the word? Myth about locums is that you have to be willing to travel. You don't have to. You can do it in your state. I think depending on what kinds of opportunities you're trying to create, the more flexible you are, the better, obviously, but you can still create what you want in a local environment. If you want to travel, this is when the perks get really good. Okay. If you want to travel, it is paid travel to some place that you might have been before. Maybe you have friends there. I've been to places that are near my friends. I've been to places that are near no one, and I just maybe you want to see what the state is like, right? You get hotel stay, which I mentioned, they're paying for, I don't know if you guys are in the credit card points game, but if you wanted to, you could put all of these things on your own credit card and have the locums agency reimburse you, and you can accumulate the points without the bill. Or for hotels, you just make sure you attach your membership number to the hotel stays, to all of your hotel stays, all of your flights, like your frequent flyer number, so that you are accumulating the mileage and the points. I was able to, I think in 2022, 2023, all the hotels, like I travel a lot. If you're not new here, I travel a lot. And a lot of that was supported by locums points, right? Like points I earned while living in a hotel, right? If I spent the bulk of my time in hotel, I was Marriott ambassador status. I didn't even understand the statuses until then, but Marriott ambassador status means I had a personal ambassador with Marriott who would take care of my arrangements if I wanted, right? I was Hilton Diamond. I think Diamond is the highest status. And that means like with the points, I could use points to pay for all of these hotel stays. I would get free upgrades everywhere. It would include so many little free perks that like me and my boyfriend were traveling in luxury. And everyone I'm sure was looking at my Instagram like, oh my gosh, these places are like so amazing. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't pay for this. Right? But so those are some of the big perks. I think also just like I've had locums agencies give me a per diem for meals. Like one agency was giving me $65 a day for food. I don't spend $65 a day for food, but I will keep that money. Right? There's so many things. I think when you're looking at a full contract or a full experience, you want to see if all of the perks are worth it, right? So sometimes the locations are a little undesirable. It depends. Like I've seen people go off to like Wisconsin or some of these other places. That's not for me. I try not to go to the deep rural South either because I have a North bias about what that means and sundown towns and other things that I've heard. But obviously those things are biases. There's plenty of people everywhere, but I do try to go to places where I think I would be well received as a Black woman physician. If it's a little bit more rural, I make sure I check that they have a Marriott and a Hilton, and I make my contract short just in case it's not great. But, in general, I think it's been nice to live in other communities, to see what other towns have, what people's lives are like, how medicine is practiced in different communities. Like, those are the things I think really shape your perspective and experience as a physician. So, there are, of course, fantastic pros to being a locums. I think the fact that you're expected to negotiate is another such perk because it's not a question of if you're going to negotiate, it's what you're going to negotiate for. And I think even just removing that barrier of like, that's just the status quo of locums is that you negotiate helps you to get your feet wet in the negotiation market. Yeah. So I think that's pretty much it. If you have questions that I did not answer, because I swear I'm missing something, I cannot remember. I've done locums for so long. I'm obviously considering it again because I did have a really good experience. I always chose my hotels, right? I always chose a Marriott or a Hilton, the long-term stay, the ones with the kitchen, because I don't know how you could live in a town for months with just a mini fridge and a microwave. I need a stove. I need a full-size fridge. So those are some of the things I asked for specifically. But because of that, because of how I negotiated even those contracts, I had a really good locums experience. I think it really does depend on what you ask for. I think you have to absolutely be protective of yourself and making sure that your setup is good and that you have an exit plan. With locums, the exit plan is always a minimum 30 days, which isn't bad, right? Even if you signed an 8-month contract, you can give them 30 days notice that you want to leave. That is also within the contract. So there are some things that are protective of just being a locums doctor that I loved. Yeah, I hope this is helpful for you. Please, again, if you have questions about locums, I could obviously talk about this ad nauseum, and I'm happy to do so. So shoot us a message and I'll be happy to answer it. I hope you have a good week. I hope your job is treating you kind. I hope everyone is treating you with love and value and appreciation. And if they're not, move on, sis, move on. All right. Have a great day, everyone. Bye. Thank you so much for listening. please subscribe to the podcast. And what I want you to do next is link us everywhere you can. Instagram at The Black Doctor. Just become part of our collective. I want you here. Thanks. Until next time. Bye.